The first part of our team meeting today is my workshop on, it's called Lele's Declassified School Survival Guide. And if you don't know where that's from, if you don't get that reference, I'm sorry, but we can't be friends anymore. You definitely have some Nickelodeon to catch up on for sure. We got some homework. But I used to name this talk the Online Semester Survival Guide because I came out with this workshop in the beginning of the pandemic. But something I realized was that the skills that I'm going to teach you guys are applicable whether you're taking classes online or in person. And these aren't just basic tips you'll get on how to succeed in school. I'm sure you guys will have some people, whether it's a professor, a peer leader, or RA, tell you like, just do your homework on time and stay organized and get enough sleep. But how you actually do that in a way that doesn't burn yourself out or overwhelm yourself or put too many things on your plate is what I want to teach you guys. And I think sometimes people overcomplicate it when in reality, it's not that complicated. Now, even though this talk is geared towards students, I genuinely believe that this talk is valuable for any entrepreneurs who are balancing multiple things at once in their life. So an exciting thing that I'll share with all of you guys, and if we could have, we did make a bunch of managers co-host, if we could have you guys just help make sure everybody's muted during the main portion of the talk, that'd be awesome. But an exciting thing I wanted to share with you guys is that I'm going to be doing sales this fall. So I'll be working as a closing gift consultant presenting Cutco to realtors around being a full-time manager, kind of how in the same way that you guys will be selling Cutco around being a full-time student. So the tips I'm going to give you guys, I personally still execute to this day. Now, just a little bit about me and why I love giving this talk. When I was in college, I took about 23 to 24 credits a semester. I went to college when I was 17 years old. I skipped my senior year of high school and basically graduated high school in 3 years and graduated college in 3 years by the time I was 20 with my Bachelor of Science in Clinical Psychology and Special Education. But I didn't just work when I was on my summer and winter breaks and do school when I was at school. Now, I started off that way. I'll be honest. I did start that way because I didn't know how to manage my time. But once Vector taught me how to manage my time and how to do multiple things at once in a way that wasn't overwhelming me, I learned that. And I learned that I could win all-inclusive paid vacations to the Caribbean or scholarships just by learning how to balance multiple things at once. I was like, I would be crazy not to do this. I'd be crazy if I didn't learn how to do this. And so I'm going to give you guys a bunch of tips that I learned the hard way. All right. So the tips that I'm going to give you guys are not just coming from a perspective of always being perfect and always having the answers. That's the exact opposite. The tips that I'm going to give you guys, I learned the hard way. I knew what it was like not to have the answers and to, in a lot of times, fail and then learn what those answers were and readjust. So my goal is to hopefully help you guys not to learn the stuff that I learned the hard way for me to just teach it to you today. Now I took a full semester of online classes my first summer working with Vector, and this was 2 years before the pandemic. I'd personally taken some online classes before that, like around my in-person semester, but it was definitely really different taking solely online classes. And at first it was a bit of a shock to me. But that summer I took 12 credits worth of summer classes online. I worked another part-time job. And a lot of you guys know me well enough that you know that I have a terrible immune system. And I was really, really sick that summer, like in and out of the hospital. I had a lot of different things going on, but I was still able to sell $20,000 worth of Cutco that summer while taking 12 credits worth of online classes, having another part-time job and feeling sick. And a lot of the tips I'm about to give you guys, I actually learned through Leadership Academy. And I am, for the most part, not really going to be using a PowerPoint. I'm going to be using a blog post. And the reason why is because I really feel like blog posts are cool because it's something that I can give to you guys that you'll have, that you can reference back to throughout the semester, unlike a PowerPoint. I want you guys to have this available to you to review at any time that you need. And in terms of surviving your semester, not just surviving, but thriving, the first thing is to just be self-aware. And I'm going to go more in depth on what that means, but that starts with knowing what your schedule looks like. So I was talking to somebody on the team earlier, and I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to call them out. But at first they were like, I don't know if I'll be able to come to the team meeting tonight. And I was like, okay, that's okay, but let's be self-aware with our schedule and know what we have coming up so that next time we can be intentional and be aware of our schedule to let me know ahead of time as opposed to the last minute. And they were like, oh, no, I know it's on my schedule. And I'm like, okay, then why are you surprised by the fact that you have tutoring going on tonight? And they were like, you got me there. I feel like, do you guys know that meme from Catfish where it's like, you got me there, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, no problem. What he realized was that he didn't have a schedule blocked off and he felt a little bit disorganized. And a lot of the times when you feel overwhelmed, it's way less about the actual stuff that you have to do. And it's way more just uncertainty because you didn't plan well. And like I said, all of the tips I'm going to give you guys are based on learning these things the hard way. But one of my favorite quotes is that failing to plan is planning to fail. So my first tip for you guys is to use an hourly schedule. Now, does anybody here have like a daily or weekly planner that might look a little bit like this, that doesn't really have the hours blocked off, but just has like a little like block for each day? Does anybody have one of these? If you just raise your hand, throw it away. Throw it away. All right. Because that is not a schedule. It's a to-do list. Maybe don't throw it away. You don't have to throw it away, but that is a to-do list. That is not a schedule. All right. Like little planners like this were made for moms or people who like don't have specific times they need to do things. Like maybe they need to stop at the store a certain time or make sure that they get a certain list of items or make sure that they stop and do certain things. But it's a to-do list. It's not a schedule, and it's not made for students. It's not made for entrepreneurs. You guys have classes at specific times. You guys have your demos and your phone jams at specific times. And if you go into your day saying like, oh, like I'm going to have my demos and I'll have the team meeting at some point and then I'll have these tests today or whatever, like that's a to-do list. That's not a planner. And you're just going to get overwhelmed because you don't realize what's on your schedule. But when you have an hourly schedule, whether that be a passion planner or a Google Calendar or Google Sheet, which I'll walk you guys through, you're going to be able to go into your day and into your week with a level of intentionality. So something that Owen says that I love is flexibility and flexible schedules aren't just waking up and deciding whether or not you feel like working. Flexibility is designing the schedule that works for you and your lifestyle and following through with it. Now, we can all be honest with each other. We're going to be very honest with each other during this talk that we've all been there before. Like we've all probably been in that situation or that day where we've woken up and we haven't really planned our day yet. We wake up and we go, ooh, I get to sleep in because I haven't planned my day yet. Has anybody here ever done that before? Yeah, everyone has. If you're like not raising your hand, you're either perfect or a liar, and you're probably a liar. But like I've been there before, I get it. But designing the schedule that works for you and designing the lifestyle that's going to help make you the happiest, the healthiest, and the most successful is going to help you to be way happier in the long term. Now, I have screenshots of what my schedule looks like when I was a student selling Cutco, and I'm going to come back to these in a second, but I want to start off by showing you guys Rob Brandt's schedule because this is actually how I learned how to do block scheduling. Now, if you haven't heard of Rob Brandt before, Rob Brandt, this is his schedule from 2011. This is from when he was a junior in college. He took 20 credits a semester. He went on 13 vacations in 2011. He played varsity sports. He had a packed schedule. He got a 3.7 GPA. And with all of that going on, he still managed to sell $198,000 worth of Cutco his junior year of college. And that means that he earned 99 grand as a junior in college. He also earned the All-American Scholarship 7 times in a row and graduated from school debt-free. And something that Owen says is that Rob wasn't always like necessarily the best rep on the planet. Like he was a really good rep, don't get me wrong. But the thing that made him the most money was his planner, it was his schedule. And if you look at his planner, he blocked off all of his time and he was intentional with it. And people used to ask him like, oh my God, Rob, you must have sacrificed so much with all of the things that you did. And I used to get the same question based on the number of credits I took every semester. But something that Rob said is he said, I didn't sacrifice anything. I just designed my life the way I wanted to live and I lived it. So what he would do is he would put everything into his schedule, not just his class or his work, right? He put everything into his schedule, and then he put dollar signs where he wanted to do his presentations. And he would even put his phone time in his schedule and his personal time in his schedule. You can see he has personal stuff right here. He would put his vacations in his schedule. He would put everything in his schedule and be intentional with his time. Now I'm going to show you guys how my schedule is. So there are so many times that I'll ask a rep, and I'm sure that lots of managers can relate to this. I would ask a rep on the team for their schedule, and they'll send me a screenshot of their class schedule from like their university website. Has any manager here ever gotten that before? Has any rep ever sent that before? Cool. It's okay if you have. But I'm like, that's not your schedule. Those are your class times, but that's not your schedule, because having only some things on your schedule gives you the illusion that you have way more time than you actually have. And so you might think that you have all this free time, but when you count in meal times and homework and friends and appointments and even laundry or workouts or dates or religious stuff, you realize you have a lot less time than you thought. And so the example I have for you guys here, and it might be a little bit blurry, I'm actually going to open it in a new tab so I can make it as big as possible. I'm on Owen's computer and I don't really know how it works. This is what we got. But what you guys can see here is all of the dark blue stuff in my schedule are the concrete things on my schedule, like my class times, my demos, my internship. And all of the light blue things on my schedule are things like lunch or going to the gym or doing my homework. And if you look at these two things, imagine how much time I would have thought I had if I didn't have those light blue things in my schedule. Like I'd be like, oh my God, I have all of this time. No, by a show of hands, has anybody here ever gotten to the end of the week and asked themselves where the time went? Every single person, right? And we've all been there. I've been there before. That's why I started doing this. So instead of just putting some things on your schedule and giving you the illusion that you have more time than you actually have, when you put everything in your schedule, you know what's coming next. You're intentional with your time, and it's going to help you so much more. It's something that Owen Trapp says is that we often overestimate how much we can get done in a couple of days, and we underestimate how much we can get done in a couple of years. And when you don't put all of the stuff in, you're just overestimating how much stuff you can get done. So I learned this the hard way. I also relearned this the hard way. So I forgot this lesson about 3 falls ago. It was my first official fall working with the company. I was Owen's sales manager at the time, and I put all of my sales manager stuff in my schedule. And I was like, okay, I put all my sales manager stuff, all my workouts, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do 8 demos a day on top of being Owen Trapp's full-time sales manager. And I remember sitting down with Owen like a week later, and my hair was like a frizzy mess. And I was like, I forgot that I had to do laundry, and I'm showering at 2 a.m. because that's the only time I can shower. And it's just because I forgot to put all of that stuff in my schedule. And once I did, I had an awesome fall in and outside of the job. And that's just so you guys know, my goal is not just to help you guys to be great reps or great students. My goal is for you guys to be just as inspired through each other as you are through me, to be the best students, the best reps, the best sons and daughters, friends, classmates. I want you guys to just be the best version of yourself. And so once I started doing these things, that next week I sold like $8,000 over the next 2 weeks, 5,800 of which was in 3 days. And I had a routine when I was in college where like every Friday afternoon, I always did my laundry. And while I did my laundry, chances are I'd be listening to a lecture that I needed to re-listen to, or maybe I was watching The Office if I was all caught up, but I had that routine in my schedule. However, like I said, only having some things in your schedule is just planning to fail, because you're going to overestimate how much stuff you can get done. So who here has ever told themselves that they're going to study or they're going to work out, and then they get to that time and they just lay in their bed and scroll through their phone? Yeah, me too. I saw a couple of you in Montana just put 2 hands in the air. And actually, I'm sorry to call you out, dude, but you raised your hand before I even finished the sentence because you knew what I was going to say. And I feel that. I feel that because we've all been here. I have no problem admitting that to myself. We all have. But admit that to yourself and ask yourself the question of what you need to do to follow through on those things. Chances are the first thing is probably going into your day with a plan, going into your week with a plan. And I'm going to cover more on emotional and energy management and time management in a few minutes. The other thing I want to let you guys know is the goal of my talk is not to tell you guys exactly what to do. Right? So different things work for different people. So I'll tell you the goal of what we're doing and the different techniques that will help people with different brains to achieve the same goal, right? Which is the goal is to manage your time well, which means using the time blocking strategy, putting everything on your schedule. But you decide, will you use Google Sheets? Will you use a Google Calendar? Will you use a passion planner? Like, I'm not going to tell you guys what to use. Everybody is different. It maybe you want a Google Calendar so that you get reminders on your phone of when you have your classes. It maybe you want to use a passion planner because it's easier for you to remember things when you write them down. Maybe you want to use Google Sheets because it's a little bit simpler than using a Google Calendar. Whatever it is that you want to do, I don't care what method you use, as long as you use the reasons behind it and you set a plan for yourself and follow through with it. The next thing that I want to go over with you guys is keeping track of assignments. And if you're not a student, the way that you can look at this from a different perspective, and the way I'm looking at it as a manager who's doing sales on the side, is keeping track of all the stuff I have to do, right? At the end of the day, that's really what this is. But I'm going to speak mainly to the students. The earlier you guys do this, the way better off you're going to be. And part of the reason why I'm giving this talk this week on this day is because for most of you, you are in syllabi week. And I remember when I was a freshman in college, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was I literally every single day checked every single one of my syllabi to see what I had coming next. And guys, imagine how much time I spent downloading and re-downloading and downloading and re-downloading every single one of my syllabi from Canvas or Blackboard or Sakai or whatever else I was using. Or even my next semester, once I got a little bit more organized and I put them all in a folder on Google Drive. Imagine how much time I just spent scrolling through each syllabi, figuring out what was where and when what was due. And sometimes the tests and the projects and the assignments were in different categories and pages on the syllabi. And there were times that I missed assignments because I genuinely didn't realize that I had them due. Has anyone ever been there before? Where you missed homework because you just didn't even know you had it? Yeah, everybody's been there. So what I started doing was I started using, I started off with my homework app. I moved over to my study life, and I'm going to show you guys something that's even easier. One thing that I'm going to advise against, especially for college students, is I don't recommend using a paper planner to keep track of assignments. And the reason why is because things change. So has anyone here ever had a professor that went a little bit overtime or undertime and all the due dates for the entire semester shifted? Right? If you haven't, welcome to college. It's going to happen. All right. And when it does, you're going to be really upset when you have to erase and rewrite your full planner because all the due dates are different now. So what I started using, and I have 3 different options for you guys. Most of the things I give, I have different options to let you guys pick, and how you can put all of your assignments in one place. So when I started off in college, I used my homeworkapp.com. This is what Chloe Ann Perez uses. Chloe is set to graduate a semester early. They ran the number 5 performing branch in the region for SC2. They are amazing, a huge nerd. They are the president of their school's Pride Club, on top of tons of other amazing things. And so Chloe uses my homework app. I would say my homework app is more so for people who are very specific. I started using my study life because I felt like it was a lot simpler. And both of them are just online websites where you can input all of your classes and your tasks for the entire semester. You can organize them by the class, by the due date, even by the type of assignment. You can mark how far along you are with it. So some of your projects you're halfway done, you can mark that in if you just like checking things off on your to-do list, you know what I mean? Even if it's halfway. My study life has a few less features than my homework app, but by the end of my college experience, I actually liked mystudylife.com more. And the reason I liked it more was just because it was a little bit less complicated, a little bit more user-friendly, and it's available online and on the phone. So both of them. You can get an app for it and you can have it on your computer. You can set it to set reminders for you of your assignments and your tests. Even you can set it to be weeks or days in advance. I just feel like not all of the features on my homework app are necessary. And if I felt like I was overcomplicating it a bit for myself when I used it, but to each their own. I want to let you guys know that there are both. Back when I used my homework app, they actually would give out coupons every time I did my homework on time, which I thought was kind of cool because I was a broke ass college student before I started working here. But yeah, I'm not going to choose for you. Another resource you could use is something I actually learned from TikTok. It's the Google Sheets method. So I'm just going to play this for you guys. I'm going to play it.
First, list everything you have due for all your
I'm going to play it twice because it goes really fast. Hold up.
classes. Highlight the whole table, then double click, sort, custom sort, then make sure it's by due date. Bang, it's every assignment for all your classes. First, list everything you have due for all your classes. Highlight the whole table, then double click, sort, custom sort, then make sure it's by due date. Bang, it's every assignment for all your classes.
Bang. And to make your lives as easy as possible, I'm not going to lie, out of everything, I think that this might actually be the best. You don't get notifications from this technique, so you're not going to get reminders on your phone, but it is by far the simplest option of the three, and it's honestly probably the easiest by far. And I actually did find a spreadsheet pre-made for you guys that you guys can copy and paste with the person who made that, and even an example of how they did it themselves. So that is on this web page. I'll post it in the chat box and I'll send it to all your managers to forward to you guys, this whole blog post. Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Now, one thing that once I started doing this, I literally never missed another assignment unless I made the conscious decision to myself that I wasn't going to do it. But I always knew what was coming next. Right? I never felt like an assignment snuck up on me once I started doing this. Whereas before, I felt like that all the time, right? Now, let me scroll down here. Now, obviously, is going through, and I'm asking everybody here, is going through each syllabus and inputting all of your assignments going to take a little bit of time? Yes. Is it worth it to feel organized and never have things sneak up on you and always know what's next? Yes. And to know if you procrastinate, it's on you. It's not like you didn't know it was due, right? Absolutely. Now, next thing I want to teach you guys is I'm going to go over some self-management tips, and then I'm going to go over understanding the difference between time, motivation, and energy management. The 5 things tip is something that I learned in Leadership Academy from Owen. It's also known as the Focus 5. And it doesn't have to be 5 things, but the premise of this technique is that you make a list for yourself of what you need to get done that day, and you do no more and you do no less than the number that you set for yourself. And the idea, and the reason why I really like this, because it eliminates underworking and overworking. So if you're the type of person that overworks yourself, it's going to help you to be a little bit nicer to yourself. And if you're the type of person that underworks yourself, maybe needs a little bit of help with motivation, it's going to help you to stay on track. It's the premise of it is that you never tell yourself, oh, I can do it tomorrow. If you always do the things that you say you're going to do and you follow through on them and you be intentional with your time, and even if you keep track for yourself of knowing how long it takes you to do things and how much time you need to do them, the only thing that could hold you back from doing them is yourself. It's literally the only thing that could hold you back is if you made the conscious decision to yourself of you're not going to. All right, so I love the 5 things tip, and sometimes it was 7, and sometimes it was 9, and sometimes it was 3. But going in today and telling myself I wasn't going to do any more or less than what was on my list helped me to take care of myself more. A couple more tips. Use the activities that you want to do as a motivator for the things that you don't want to do. So do the homework that you're least interested in first, because if you do all the stuff that you're most excited about, and then you're done with it, and then it's later, and then you're like, wow, now I have all the things that I don't want to do together and I have less energy to do them. Whereas like if you do all the things that you don't want to do first, those things might take you a little bit longer because you're not as excited about them, but then you're going to have a little bit less energy, but a little bit more motivation to do the things that you are interested in. And that's going to keep you on task. Another thing that I would do for myself is talk about value versus interest. I've been in places where I was taking a class that I said to myself, I went to a liberal arts school. And there were times where I took classes on things that I was never going to use ever again in my life. I'll never forget the last time I ever took a math class, and I threw myself a party that day. I was so happy. And I remember being in a stats class that I literally hated so much because I was like, I'm never going to need to know the likelihood of picking up a card on a deck. Like that's just not going, and if I am, I'm just gonna Google it. Like that's never something that I'm gonna have to worry about. And I just had to find a way to ask myself, like, okay, these are the reasons why getting this degree or taking this class or getting this grade is important to my future. And I created a purpose for myself when I didn't have one. And I'm the type of person where if I don't have a purpose for something, it's really hard for me to do it. So what I'm saying is ask yourself what motivates you and make that connection. Even if that class, that the subject of that class might not be important to you, passing the class probably is. And I'm sure that there are some connections you can make for yourself to make it a little bit more worth it mentally. Find ways to connect them to your future and ask them how that's going to help you. And give yourself natural motivators and rewards. Now, I'll be honest with you all, there is nothing wrong with putting more energy towards the things that are going to make you more successful. Like at the end of the day, I made sure that I passed my math classes. I took one of them 3 times, but I finished and I passed the last one that I took. And I still graduated cum laude and I still graduated 3 years early or 2 years early, but I didn't pour my heart and soul into my stats class. All right. So I don't think there's anything wrong with not putting all of your energy into the things that aren't going to serve you in the future. Next thing though, this is one of my favorite things to teach, is understanding the difference between time, motivation, and energy management. So chances are you have 2 of them and there's one that you're missing. All right. So I'm going to give you guys my own personal example for this. For me, when I was very, very, very physically ill, I had the time and I had the motivation. I just didn't have the energy, right? Because I was so sick that I physically couldn't do it. And I've been in any of these situations where you have 2, but not the other. Now, if you're struggling with those things, if you're struggling with time management, I'm not going to go too much into this since I did just go into a lot of it. But a tip I will give you is figure out what your goals are based on the schedule you set up for yourself, based on the way that you time block and set up a schedule. And go into your school schedule with demos on your schedule as soon as possible. Like, don't say to yourself, oh, I'm not ready to book a lot of demos for the school year. I just want to see how it goes. Saying that you're just going to see how it goes is just using comfortability as an excuse, right? So I never waited until I was settled at school. Like my school schedule is going to be the same my whole semester. My assignment list was going to be the same my whole semester. And if anything, the first week at school was the easiest because it was mostly just syllabus review. And so I went into my schedule with demos already on my schedule and forced myself into that. I'll go more into that in a bit. Next thing is if you're struggling with energy management. Now, these things are going to be really simple, but wait a second. So if you're struggling with energy management, take care of yourself, eat healthy, drink enough water, go to damn bed, go to bed. Some of you guys feel like I'm yelling specifically at you in this moment. Like, does she knows that I didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. last night because I binge watched that new Netflix thing? Like, no, I'm not talking to you specifically. One of the craziest quotes that I ever read, because I am not a morning person at all, is very few successful entrepreneurs sleep in more than 1 to 2 times a month. And that was a terrifying quote for me to read because I am not a morning person. And I know these things sound simple, guys, right? Like when I was writing this talk, I was like, do they really need to hear this? Do they really need to hear like drink water, work out, go to damn bed, eat healthy? And then I was like, you know what? How many people in this room can genuinely raise their hand and say to themselves that they've done all of those things to the level that there's no room for them to manage their energy better? Like, who here thinks they can manage their energy a little bit better by a show of hands? everyone, right? And it doesn't have to be crazy, but start with the basics. That was something that I'm going to use Chloe as an example again, because Chloe is a badass. And I hope that no one here minds cursing, because I'm going to curse more. But Chloe, Chloe, when they started with me, they had probably the worst sleep schedule of any student any person I've ever met in my entire life. It was disastrous. And Chloe will be the first one to tell you that. But after hearing me give this talk, Chloe and I sat down and we talked about what was important to them in the future and how those things were not just affecting them on the day to day, but were affecting their general health and success in total. In a lot of ways, the job is a reflection of you, which I'm sure we've all been in those scenarios. We're like, yeah, the job is a reflection of me. And then there are other days where we're like, damn it, I hate that the job is a reflection of me right now. Like, can it not be for this? Like, can I catch a break? But when Chloe really took their health seriously, even at the basic level of getting a solid amount of sleep and going to bed earlier and having a better sleep schedule, now Chloe is like a lifter. Like Chloe has a personal trainer and is the healthiest that they've ever been physically. And honestly, the way that they show up every single day to their classes, to their meetings, to their phone jams is entirely different. All right. Now, if you're struggling with motivation, I'm just going to give you guys a few tips. And this is something more so that you should talk to your manager one-on-one with. But do now what others won't, so later you can have what others can't. Success demands what most people are capable of giving, but what very few people are willing to give. One of my favorite quotes from Hal Elrod is that everyone wants to be a level 10 person. Like, everyone wants to have level 10 success in every single area of their life, but very few people are dedicated to put forth the level 10 habits that are required to live that life. Like, how do you feel currently? How do you want to feel? What are the actions that you need to take to bridge that gap? And what's more important to you? Like temporary comfort, gliding through the semester, scrolling through Netflix, or muting yourself and turning off your camera while your professor or your manager is giving you fire tips, wink, wink. Like, how are you going to feel when all of your friends are at an all-inclusive Caribbean vacation while you're at home freezing through midterms because you decided to watch a few extra Netflix episodes? Like, communicate with your manager when you're struggling. Let us hold you accountable. There were so many times that I reached out to Owen, even when I wasn't connected with Cutco at the moment. There were times that I reached out to Owen that I wasn't actively on the team, and we just talked about school. We talked about stuff that had nothing to do with Cutco, and he was there for me. Your managers will be there for you. Your teammates will be there for you. Like, there were times that I called Owen in the semester and it was like finals week, and I was like, the sky is falling. I felt like Chicken Little, and he would help ground me and get me back to where I needed to be. Like, get an accountability buddy. Choose someone that you're going to have to hold you accountable and that you can even hold them accountable too. A couple last tips for you guys. I'm going to change this. This shouldn't say that again. I'm going to fix that. That should say extra tips. So we're totally going to pretend that that says that for sure. So a couple last tips for you guys. Leverage your network. You might feel like you're on your own with online classes, or even if you're in person after being virtual for a while, or if you don't know a ton of people at school yet, you might feel like you're on your own. But by now, every single person here has learned the power of networking with Vector and the effect that that can have on your success. Create a genuine connection with your classmates so you guys can form study groups if you ever miss anything. It's that you have people you can reach out to rely on, catch up with, and create a genuine connection with your professor. Something that I did was, every semester, I introduced myself to my professor. If it was virtual, I send them an email, or I'd stay late after the Zoom, or I'd go to their office hours. If it was in person at the end of class on the first day, I just walk up to them and I'd introduce myself. And I would say, hey, my name is Lele. This is why I'm really excited to be a part of your class. If there was anything that I would love for you to know about me right off the bat, it's that I really care about my goals, that I'm working towards this, this, and this, that I have this terrible health issue that might come up this semester, and I'm letting you know now so it's not a surprise. And I just was very open with them and made a great impression from them right off the bat. And I can't tell you guys how useful that was for me when I started falling behind on my physical health, and I was able to give my professor a call or a text or an email, and they were there for me because they knew me. and they liked me and they trusted me and they saw my work ethic. So when I asked for help, it was genuine, not just any other student making an excuse. And they knew that, and they gave me the help that I asked for most of the time. Another tip I'll give you guys is create a productive workspace for yourself. So you guys can see here, I remember when everything went to quarantine, I personally didn't have a desk, so I bought one. And if you don't have like a ton of expendable income, that's okay. First of all, do more demos. Second of all, Five Below has desks and stools right now for $5 effing bucks. Go to Five Below. I love Five Below. Anyone here knows that I love it so much. Like, that's so cool, right? Create a productive workspace for yourself. If you need one, get one. Let your manager and your team hold you accountable. Multiple reps on the team have been doing their homework on Zoom with us, right? We have reps all the time that will come by the office or will hop on Zoom to get homework done, just to be in a productive space and to hold themselves accountable. So there were times where we were like, hey guys, we have a phone jam. And they were like, oh, we can't come because we have homework. And I was like, cool, do it on Zoom. There's no excuses, right? I used to do homework all the time at the office when I was taking online classes that summer. Like, having a productive environment was so helpful. And I'll never forget when I would come to the office, I would write an essay, I would make 50 calls, I would book 5 to 10 demos. Like, I would book more demos than the kids that weren't taking classes. And that felt so damn good. It was the best. And so I have a question for you guys. Even though I just went through a crazy amount of stuff, and I talked ridiculously fast, and cursed a little bit, even though Earl Kelly's son is on the Zoom call, and Earl can probably hear me. Maybe, I hope he can't.
You're lucky I'm at college.
Thank God. um, so even though I talked really fast, do we all feel like we got a lot from this workshop? Amazing. Cool. So the beautiful thing now is that you guys have the tools. All right. And I even, on this blog post at the end, I have a summary that you can review. All of your managers will send out this blog post to you all so that you have it. The last thing I want to go over with you guys, a couple quick things before we kick off the phone jam. First, because I'm cool as heck, I'm going to play this for you guys.
A message from Big Snoop Deal Double G to all the university students. Yo, syllabus. You gotta do it. You gotta read it.
You gotta. Snoop Dogg got me. Right. I saw that and I was like, I have to add that to this talk. I have to. But I want to just show you guys what your semester can look like when you choose to sell Cutco around school. Something that I briefly hit on was, I think a mistake a lot of students make is going into the fall and creating unnecessary transitions for themselves. Right? A huge mistake that I made when I was in college is I said, I'll get acclimated with my class schedule, and then I'll take on a job that with the hours that fit my schedule, and then I'll set up different things. And I think that's how a lot of people think. And I think that is what a lot of people will advise you to do. That's definitely how my thought process worked when I was a freshman in college. And what I realized is that I was putting myself in a constant state of transition. And first of all, this job will take on your schedule, whatever it is. Very few places will do that. And then I said, okay, like 2 weeks later, now that my class schedule is acclimated to, I'll take on a job. This was before I knew about Cutco. It took me about 2 weeks to find a job. And then all of a sudden it was midterms and I was super stressed. And I realized that I'd created a nap schedule for myself instead of a demo schedule. Not to mention, I didn't have a car and I needed a car to get a job, and I needed a job to get a car, which I'm very grateful that now we have this virtual option. I actually bought a car with the money that I made from Cutco over my winter break. Then when I adjusted to my clubs, I'll do X. And then when I get adjusted to my new friends, I'll do Y. And then I'll do this. And then when I get adjusted to my study groups, I'll do Z. And I realized, like I said, that I put myself in a constant state of transition. And even by the end of the semester, by finals, I was never settled. And waiting to start one thing until I felt good about the thing before wasn't time management. It was poor energy management. And like I said before, at the end of the day, my class schedule stayed the same all semester. I got my syllabi the first week. I was just waiting until I felt comfortable to work. And that was so damn stupid because comfortability should not be the deciding factor for you. And I realized that I would have been 10 times less stressed if I got all the transition done at once instead of doing one thing at a time. What really helped me those following semesters was if I did need to make an adjustment, I knew what worked for me and I knew it didn't. And then the transition was over and I was just able to get into the groove of my life. A mistake that I used to make that honestly, Owen Trapp and Brian Scuderi and Earl Kelly were the three main people that helped me to get over this, was I was a huge perfectionist. So I wanted to make sure one thing was perfect before I started the next. And I was so nervous of adjusting. Like I was so nervous of, dropping a class or changing my demo schedule or, switching a class time or whatever it was, whatever it was, picking a different workout schedule. I was so nervous to adjust things because I thought that it meant that I failed. When in reality, I learned that the only way to be successful was to make adjustments. And it was to put everything and then adjust from there. And if I needed to, or if shit hit the fan or things didn't go my way, or when life happened, there wasn't 5 bajillion other transitions going on in my life. I was in the groove and I had stability, and that allowed me to handle obstacles so much better. So let me scroll down here. So that's my biggest advice for you guys. This is my breakdown for you guys of, let's say that you are at a 60% closing percentage, you're at a $250 average order, and you are at $0 in sales, which I don't believe that anyone here is at $0 in sales. But if you literally just started working here yesterday and you're like, what the heck is this girl talking about? Cool. This is for you. If you do 3 demos a week on an average, that means that you will sell like $6,500 worth of Cutco over the fall semester, and that you'll sell $1,100 or you'll earn $1,100. I'm sorry. And by the way, this is based on a 13-week fall. Fall is 16 weeks. Who's counting? I want to account for Thanksgiving and Christmas and finals and midterms, right? So I took a little bit of time out of that. 3 demos a week on average, 5 demos, that means you would make $2,000. 7 demos, that means you'd make $3,000. And by the way, when you do 5 demos a week on average, that already puts you in a position to earn a letter of recommendation from the CEO. When you do 10 to 15 demos a week, that will put you in a position to earn a scholarship through the company. If you do 20 demos a week, that will put you in a position to earn $12,000 and to be within the top 1% of students within the entire company for the fall. Now, this is just so you guys know, this is, like I said, based on $0, low closing percentage, low average order. Who here feels like 3 hours a week isn't really a lot of time? Who here feels like $1,000 extra in your bank account would be life-changing? Yeah. And that's just at the baseline. Now, let's say that you are past 10K in sales, that you have hit dirty 30, which welcome to the club. Let's say you are at that point. Look at how much of a difference this makes for you. Where instead of that, if you're at 70% closing percentage, $350 average order, 10K in sales, if you do 3 demos a week on average, you'll sell $775 a week on average. You'll sell $10,000 worth of Cutco, earn the President's Club letter, and earn $3,000. 5 demos a week, $5,000, 7 demos a week, $7,000. Basically, the number of demos you do a week is the number of grands that you put in your bank account, which is a pretty cool way of thinking about it, right? And I'm really bad at math, so if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but I think this is right because I checked it 3 times. Maybe I did need that class. But yeah, so this is the breakdown for you guys. This I will also add to the bottom of this blog post so you guys can look at it during the semester, remind yourself of what you're working towards. And I am just going to finish off with, I'm going to do 2 things for you guys. I'm going to play 2 of my favorite motivational audios to get us in the zone. While I am playing these motivational audios, I want you guys to work on setting up your schedule for the semester if you haven't already. If you need a place to set up your schedule, if you want to use a Google Sheet, you guys are more than welcome. And by the way, if managers, if you guys, I tried to make all the managers co-hosts. If we didn't make you a co-host, Charisma is working on that as we speak. You guys are more than welcome to post your stuff in the chat box for your people, but I'm going to post the legacy division schedule. You guys are more than welcome to click it and Once it loads, use the schedule tab and set up your schedule. You guys can totally do that. But I want you guys to set up your schedule, whether it's Google Calendar or Passion Planner. I realized I forgot to almost show you guys something. Does anybody here use Canvas for their school? Yeah, a bunch of you guys. I saw this. Hold on, let me go back. Right here. I saw this TikTok. I'm going to show you guys it really quick on how to automatically sync your Canvas or Blackboard with your Google Calendar. Hold on, let me show you guys this. That's not it. That's for sure not it. For sure not.
Esta pareja decidió.
Yeah, that's a pregnancy test is for sure not how you auto sync. So I'm gonna find that TikTok for you guys while I play this motivational audio. Maybe it got taken down. Wouldn't that be sad if it did? I'll figure it out. There is a way. But I want you guys to focus on setting up your schedule. And I want every single person, once you have your schedule set up, whether you use a GroupMe or WhatsApp, if you don't have a team GroupMe or WhatsApp, text your manager. I want every single person to post a picture of their schedule for the fall semester in the GroupMe. Yeah, Canvas said, nah, you can, no. So I want everyone to work on setting up their schedules. Does it have to be perfect? No. I just want you guys to have a starting point. So we're going to work on that while I play this video. I'm going to play one other video, and then I'm going to kick off the phone jam for us, okay?
So, yeah, for me, the daily confrontation with fear has become a real practice for me since about three years ago. I went skydiving in Dubai, right? And skydiving is a really interesting confront with fear, right? So I gotta stand up. I'm sorry, I gotta stand up. All right. So all your friends, what happens? You go out. Oh, sorry. I dropped my thing. So what happens is you go out the night before and you take a drink with your friends, and somebody says, "Yeah, we should go skydiving tomorrow." And you go, "Yeah, we'll go skydiving tomorrow." "Yeah, yeah." And you go, "Yeah." And everybody goes, "Yeah." Right? And you go home by yourself, you're like, Right? You're like, well, I mean, they was drunk too. Right? So maybe they not, I mean, we don't have to go. We don't have to do it. So then that night you're laying in your bed and you just keep and you're terrified. You keep imagining over and over again jumping out of an airplane, and you can't figure out why you would do that, right? And you're laying there and you have the worst night's sleep of your life, but you still have the hope that your friends were drunk, right? So you wake up the next day and you go, down and you say where you were going to meet, and everybody's there. You're like, oh, shit. All right, cool, right? So you get in the van and you don't know that your friends had the same night that you had because they're pretending like they didn't. They're like, "Yeah, man, my uncle's a Navy SEAL, and this is going to be great. I've been looking forward to this." And you're like, oh my God. And your stomach is terrible. You can't eat and everything, but you don't want to be the only punk who doesn't jump out of this airplane. So you get there, and then you have the safety brief. And you're standing there, and the guys will tell you, well, if the chute doesn't open, what's going to happen is well, why the hell, what could happen? That the chute wouldn't open, right? So you do a thing, and what you do is your first jump, you're attached to a guy who is going, he's going to walk you out. So you go, and you get there, and there's an airplane, and nobody's stopping. Everybody's still going. So you get onto the airplane, and you're sitting there, and it's extra because you're sitting on some dude's lap, some stranger. You're sitting on his lap, and it's like, trying to make small talk. Yeah, man. So you be jumping with people all the time, huh? Right? So, and then you just want to make sure, you got kids, right? You got people you need to see, right? You just want to make sure he's serious, right? So you get in there, so everything's normal. So you fly and you go up to 14,000 feet, and you notice there's a light. It's red, and it's yellow and green, right? So right now the light's red. So then you start thinking at some point the light's going to go green, but you don't know what's going to happen, right? And you wait, and it goes yellow, and the light goes green, and somebody opens the door, and in that moment you realize you've never been in a freaking airplane with the door open. Right? terror. Oh, sorry, I'm spitting. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. No, terror, 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 right? So you go, and then, you know, if you were smart, you sat in the back so you don't go first, right? And then people start going out of the airplane. And you go, and the guy walks you up to the end of the thing, and you're standing and your toes are on the edge, and you're looking out down to death. And they say, on 3. And they say, 1, 2. And he pushes you on 2 because people grab on 3, right? Right? And you go, and you fall out of the airplane, and in 1 second, you realize that it's the most blissful experience of your life. You're flying, right? It doesn't feel like falling, right? It's like you actually are kind of held a little bit by the wind, and then you start falling, and there's zero fear. You realize that the point of maximum danger is the point of minimum fear. It's bliss. It's bliss, and you're flying, right? And you're doing that, and then 20 seconds, 25 seconds, 40 seconds, and you have enough time to just kind of be like, oh, shit, that's that building. That's not like that one. Oh, you can see the ocean. Right? You start doing all of that, and the lesson for me was, why were you scared in your bed the night before? What do you need that fear for? Just don't go. Why are you scared in your bed 16 hours before you jump? Why are you scared in the car? Why could you not enjoy breakfast? What did you need that? The fear is fear of what? You're nowhere even near the airplane. Everything up to the stepping out, there's actually no reason to be scared. It only just ruins your day. You don't have to jump. And then in that moment, all of a sudden, where you should be terrified is the most blissful experience of your life. And God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror. On the other side of your maximum fear are all of the best things in life. You know? Mm-hmm. So that was sorry. So that was,
No,
sorry.
it's good.
That was my experience with skydiving and fear.
All right.
I have no clue what happened to Owen's computer those last few seconds there, but I love that talk. It mainly because it reminds me of the jumping in the pool analogy, or when you have something in front of you that you're nervous about. And has anyone here ever tiptoed into a pool before, like a really cold pool? And it's awful. It sucks. Right? Like you stick your toes in and you're like, ah! It's so cold, and then you put your ankle in and you're like, oh my god, it's so cold. And then the worst part is you get to your knees and then you get to your belly button, and in my opinion, that's the worst part. And every single step is so painful, and it's not fun, and you're just torturing yourself the whole time, and it takes so much longer. Whereas if you just jump into the pool, you might be a little bit more scared for a second, and it might be a bit of a shock, but then you adjust to the temperature way quicker, and then you just go for a swim, and you've so much more fun. So if I could give you guys one big tip when it comes to going into your school semester, it's to jump into the pool. But I love that talk. Next thing I'm going to do for you guys is